right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. May I have roll call?
Mr. Antoine is absent with notice. Mrs. Bonnick is absent with notice. Mr. Boyer?
Present.
Ms. Bowman?
Here.
Mr. Hockey?
Here.
Mrs. Eichhorst?
I'm here.
Okay.
All right, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please? Motion by Chahaki, second by Boyer. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, any questions? Okay. All right, moving on. Due to the snow day that we had today, we will not have our Bulldog Spotlight, so I don't know if they'll be rescheduled, Dr. Robinson?
Yeah, we'll get them.
In the near future, but hopefully all the kids enjoyed that day today. So we'll be moving on then to our consent action items. This is approval of our general fund bills, financial reports, our wire transfer report, purchasing card expenditures, and the approval of minutes from our organizational meeting, which was the last time we were here on January 5th. Do I have a motion? Motion. Motion by Bowman.
Second.
Second by Boyer. Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving right along to communications. I don't have anything at this time. Dr. Robinson?
No.
Okay. All right, then we have two committee reports tonight. There was two committees that have met since the beginning of the year. Began, policy and security. So if we could start with policy, Mrs. Rice.
Sure thing. We met on January 21st. It was a committee of the whole. All members were present, including some district representation from each building level. We had discussed some administrative regulation updates on 2006 policy, which we're actually voting on tonight to implement. We discussed draft regulations under review for implementation for the 2026-27 school year on that policy to allow time for planning and communications. The restrictions clarified for devices, including like personal laptops, tablets, gaming devices, but that's not all wired devices, earbuds and earphones, smartwatches. And the policy outlines the regulations, more on that to come. We discussed the discipline matrix drafted by grade level and exemption process confirmed according to ADA and special requests. So we also talked about outside activities, Palo 4005. We talked about language revisions to address the concerns raised by the REA for teacher tutoring. An updated draft will be reviewed by legal counsel before we move to a second reading on that, so more to come on that. Policy 4005, we also discussed the recent policy that was approved on ideological and political symbols. We did discuss possibly including more language, including political rhetoric in the classroom outside of curriculum. So more to come on that. That's still under discussion. And overall, it was a very productive meeting.
Right, and maybe when we get to that resolution, you can read just the language that we are voting on tonight for the second reading. All right. Can we move on? Mrs. Bowman for security.
Sure. The safety subcommittee met on January 14th. Our first discussion item was student conduct reports. We talked about the summaries of student conduct reports, the format from the first 4 months since school started. It included a summary of expulsions, any imminent and high behavioral threat assessment ratings, and a summary of serious discipline incidents. We discussed how much volume should be included in these reports, particularly at the elementary level. The board stressed that we would like that volume to be included so we can make informed decisions about the needs of those individual buildings. Mr. Murray and Ms. McFarland also explained how they're working with administrators with the new Power School behavior software that we recently approved. They're working on how to examine the drop-down menu of this program to relate to our current student code of conduct. They don't meet up. So the committee agreed that the language needs to better reflect like behaviors versus age levels. So the plan moving forward is to edit our student code of conduct here for the district to provide the necessary offenses or labels, and then have the Power School Behavior Support software directly match the codes. So that way it'll be easier for administrators and teachers to pick depending on age and all that. So, and this will also allow for more consistent reporting with student behavior across all buildings. Then we discussed the 31AA funding update. Currently, the Court of Appeals decision is expected in late February and early March, so more to come on that. The SRO update, there was a discussion on the potential for a third SRO in a hybrid position, continuing with both the Macomb County Sheriff's Office and the Washington Township. It's still in its infancy, so it's too early to begin discussing specifically what that SRO would be doing. His or her detailed job descriptions and their jurisdiction. The idea would be that they would be present at the 9th grade academy during lunch hour and also assist with elementaries if needed, and also be a backup for Officer Labish may he be absent or get called elsewhere. The Sheriff's Office is confident they can staff this position, so we're realistically looking at the start of next school year, hopefully. But it's still in discussion with the township, so more to come on that as well. Other items was a district safety committee update, the 25-26 school safety focus. Mr. Thomas was present, and he gave an update on how they are working on relocation routes by coordinating with our emergency response team representatives, first responders, and our bus drivers. And then we discussed the safety director contract. Dr. Robinson emphasized what an asset Mr. Thomas has been to our district, citing all his examples with his background in law enforcement in comparison to how he's handled various incidents in the district. The committee members all agreed with Dr. Robinson to pursue an updated contract renewal with Mr. Thomas's contracts, and more to come on that. And we adjourned at 5:47. It was a pretty quick meeting.
Quick, but it was very meaty in all the things that we discussed, so. All right, and we'll move on to superintendent's report.
All right, we'll start with academic services. Mrs. McFarland?
I'm pinch hitting for Mr. Murray. So I want to read his email so I don't get anything goofed up. Mr. Murray apologizes for not being here this evening. I'd like to talk about CKLA coaching returning. So if Mother Nature cooperates, we are planning for our Amplify coaches to return to support our teachers again. During their first visit to Romeo this year, the coaches visited classrooms to observe instruction and provide feedback for growth. In a twist from what we have done in the past when they visited, we arranged time in the visit schedule for teachers to meet with the coaches for a Q&A session. Doing this allowed us to look for common pinch points. The most common concern from teachers was being able to cover all the ELA content within a school day. In response to this, we have planned for our coaches on this next visit to show teachers how to trim daily lessons, ensuring coverage of the most important content while keeping instruction within the daily window of instruction. His next update has to do with our upcoming Young Fives and Kindergarten Roundup. The process for understanding enrollment numbers at Young Fives and Kindergarten has begun. Each week leading up to Young Fives and Kindergarten Information Night, which is on February 24th at 6:30 p.m. at each of our buildings, the district and our elementary buildings are publishing a contact form that we are asking prospective Young Five kindergarten families to complete. Completing this form will give us a better idea of what enrollment numbers might look like, while also allowing us to communicate with previously unknown families if needed. Please spread the word. Knowing who's coming will allow us to more effectively plan for the upcoming school year. Are there any questions? All right. Home run. Moving on. Secondary update. So the weather has not been kind to our high school team. So they will finish exams tomorrow. So the NWEA window for high school is going to be extended a little bit. Our 9th and 10th graders take the ELA and math, NWA, so they just need a little bit more time for it. So we'll extend the window so they can get those assessments in. I wanted to make you aware of our DEM partner pop-in. It's this Wednesday, 7:45 to 9:30 a.m. So if you're not at work yet or on your way in, Mrs. Dawson, our CTE director, started this last year. It's a very casual, it's not scripted. You can pop into, our DEM CTE classes or DEM content area teachers. They know that people might be popping in. And I think our culinary, she gives you a muffin juice to go on your way to work. So if you plan on attending, let me know, and I will be on the lookout for you. Wanted to give you some updates about our middle school. So lots of things have been happening. It's so exciting to finally see some of our plans in action. So our 6th grade Explore, they had their nonprofit fair early in November, but they rated some of the partners that were there and who they wanted to learn more from. So those were 4-H and MSU Extension, Leader Dogs for the Blind, and Paws, Aws, and Claws. So Mrs. Racevich has been working with those nonprofit partners, and they will be doing some things with our 6th graders to continue to explore about those areas, and then there'll be some follow-up reflection activities that the students do. And the hope is our 8th grade leadership team mentors our 6th grade like twice a month. So when they finish this presentation about what they learned from these partners, they will present to the 8th graders. So trying to get them used to presenting and working on those profile skills. Our 7th grade Engage, so we've got 2 weeks in. Wednesday's canceled. Forgotten Harvest is not distributing food on Wednesday. I don't know, sorry, broke the news. But we've had 2 at our times visit and participate in the food distribution with Forgotten Harvest. And Mr. Martz actually, last week, Thursday, brought in one of the 7th graders who participated. And she was not a Romeo student for her whole school career. This was her first year in Romeo. And she couldn't say, she just went on and on about how great it was. And she actually, I think, put the frozen turkeys in the trunk, something. Her hands were cold. I'm like, well, they have bigger gloves for you. But it was amazing listening to what her experience was. That morning, she told her mom she didn't want to go. And her mom encouraged her to go. I think her mother might have been a chaperone as well. And so the young lady shared with us at the administrative meeting that she and her friends want to go back. Maybe in the spring or the summer, and she had all these plans. So gotta love 7th grade energy. We also do Romeo open-handed, so they can take a smaller group. So we split our times in half, and they fold clothes, they put food and other items on shelves. So that's been going very well as well. They will go on Wednesday because it's inside. Our goal is for kids to experience 2 outs for service learning and 2 ins. Believe it or not, the ins are more challenging than the outs to schedule. So Mrs. Racevich has been on the phone and emails and trying to get, we think we have Travis Mannion, who was at the nonprofit fair, to come in and do an activity with students in the building. We're just looking for a second one. And then 8th grade, Empower. We weren't supposed to do anything this year, but I challenged our administrators to let's do something to make sure we know what we're doing. So next year when these 7th graders and 8th graders, we've got something planned. So we are piloting 2 activities with the leadership classes. So 4th hour is focusing on senior citizens. So we've finally got someone at the Bruce Township Parks and Rec Senior Center. So actually, Mrs. Hop came and was visiting Thursday, I think, with Mrs. Racevich. So we're hopeful, number one, that we can get some of our seventh graders out to the senior center, and then she can come in and talk to our leadership class about a project to do something for our senior citizens. And then the second leadership class, we're focused on students with disabilities, and we're partnering with Mr. Essian and Hubble Elementary. And so they've had Mrs. Forget come in and speak with them, a physical therapist speak with them, and Mr. Essian speak with, only two Fridays. So they're very excited about what they are envisioning. It'll be later in May. We'll let you know when that is, so you can come see what our kids are doing. And then Mr. Eldridge and Mrs. Racevich are also working on 5 different, we're calling them Engaged Plus. They're not quite a Changemaker Challenge yet. Aligned to some of the lead-worthy activities and themes. Kindness, anti-bullying, the environment, animal welfare, home and food insecurity, and then heroes in our community. So all of the learning that our students are doing in the reflection, they're reflecting on the profile and the strengths and the attributes that they demonstrated through these opportunities. So we're very excited things are finally happening. So they will be here in March. Our middle school team, March is Middle Level Education Month, so they will be Bulldog Spotlight in March.
I was going to ask if we get to see pictures, but I'm sure
Oh, you'll
they'll-
see
they'll
pictures,
bring stuff.
you'll hear kids, yeah, you'll see a bunch of
Exciting.
stuff in March. So, any
Thank you.
questions?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Couple things in my report tonight. From the construction standpoint, we have a resolution tonight to approve the equipment purchase for our 2 remaining playground renovations for this summer. A few pieces of equipment in the order have a extended lead time, so we moved this up to get this approved. And looking ahead to February, we have our construction meeting tomorrow, and then I know the current bid windows that are open are closing up towards the end of the month. I'll have a conversation with our construction team about the implications of waiting from a potential special meeting on February 9th to our regular Board of Education meeting later in the month in terms of signing contracts and preparing for construction this summer. I'm anticipating that we'll be okay to wait to approve those 2 projects at a regular meeting. I know some of our concern was the lead times on the equipment that had us thinking potentially earlier in February. So I'll communicate with the board this week once I get some feedback from our construction team. Just a couple of examples. We've learned a little bit from the first 3 installations, and so Mrs. Wycheck and Mr. Essian had a conversation with our other 3 principals, about equipment on the playground. They've made a couple of modifications. We know that the setup at Hevel Elementary actually has separate lower and upper L playgrounds on different sides of the building. So it looks like less equipment, but it's only half because it's just the lower L. And we've actually done some improvements to that playground area, increasing play space and things like that. So just a couple views of some of the equipment, very similar to our other 3 renovations. And of course, we've allowed the school design teams to pick their own color scheme, so a little bit of variation in color. So have a lower L. This is a little bit more of a aerial view of the back of Hevel. And so we see the layout of the different equipment. They have a different climbing apparatus than the one that the first 3 playgrounds thought we could make a little bit better choice for student play in that. So you'll see that in the middle of both playground designs. And then a little bit, some close-ups of some of the climbing and things like that. So some exciting stuff. Our kids are using it a ton. Took about almost 2 months before anyone played anywhere else than the equipment on the new ones, which was neat to see. So in terms of Indian Hills, a little different color scheme and more centralized layout for both levels. We're relocating the play equipment area on the site to get out of the lowest area that has a tendency to always be, a little bit underwater or overly damp in that spring time frame when we're getting a lot of rain. So we're moving this to the west. And just for reference, like you see the blacktop in the top right corner there, that's the new play pad that we put down the end of last year. So you're actually looking north at the playground from here. And we'll connect the walking path like we have in the other ones. So that'll be there for staff and students to use when they're outside. Little different view, and we're hopeful to include a little bit of area for potential future growth of equipment. But other than a little bit of escalation in cost, the budgets across all of our buildings have been very similar for equipment, and you've seen those numbers from the 2021 bond in your packet. The second thing third thing I should say that I wanted to talk a little bit about was we have our annual school of choice resolution on the agenda tonight for 105 and 105C. So I know I gave the board a memo with a lot of information. I want to thank Mrs. Pereira for her help in putting that together. She got a bit of a crash course with the help of our enrollment coordinator and Power School and Mr. Murray also. So a lot of time, but I think it helped for her to have a little bit of an understanding of actually how many kids it is based on our enrollment, how they're divided across the buildings, and of course what the financial implications of that are. So probably more for those who might watch the meeting on recording than the board tonight, bear with me, but I think we'll share just a couple highlights. 105 is Macomb County resident students from other districts, and then 105C is contiguous neighboring counties. So when you're located like this on the border or on the corner of a county, your district butts up against districts that are in a different county, and the state allows you to accept students from those neighboring counties with a different approval. So that's the difference in between the 105 and the 105C. The board has to approve annually, and we can declare unlimited choice or limited choice based on the different grade levels and in some cases buildings if it's the only building that services those grades. So our request again this year is for unlimited school of choice for grades young 5 through 8th grade, and then our limited school of choice for 9th through 11th. There is no school of choice for 12th graders, and our numbers are the same allocations this year for the limited at the high school level as they were last year, which I believe is 40 seats for the 9th grade building, 20 seats for 10th grade, and 10 seats for 11th grade. We did not hit those numbers last year. We probably had the most incoming freshmen, but seem to get very few 10th and 11th graders who are making that move once they start in a high school. Just in terms of when these applications comes in, it's important that we get prior transcripts or report cards based on the age level of the kids. We want to make the right academic placement. Believe it or not, there are times where parents will enroll their students and try and repeat a grade or skip a grade, both resident and through school of choice. We want to make sure we have prior discipline history. We have a specific form that parents sign, whether you're resident or new resident student or school of choice, which is an affirmation of prior discipline. They make a declaration whether there was discipline or not, specifically if the student's been suspended or expelled. And then there's documentation we ask for, typically a printout from the student information system from whatever school district it was. Sometimes in the case of some of the parochial or private schools, we get a letter from the principal of that school stating there's no discipline. Students are only placed in grade level classrooms at a building if there's availability, and I'll shed a little light on that in one of the other slides coming up. It is important to note that once a student is accepted via school of choice in Romeo, they are essentially like a resident student unless enrollment is broken. Of course, we don't provide transportation for out-of-district students. We do have some instances where if there's availability at bus stops, transportation department will coordinate with those parents for those students to be dropped at a stop. Sometimes that gets, it's on the edge of the district closer to where they're coming from. So we do try and help if we can there, but we're not going out past district boundaries to pick kids up. When we look overall, we currently, based on the fall count day, have 435 inter-district school of choice students. That's 179 students at the elementary level and 256 in grades 6 through 11. Just a reminder that we don't do school of choice for seniors. In most instances, if a student has been with us through high school, through school of choice, their home high school or home district will release them to finish their school career here for their senior year. So it's about 8% of our total enrollment, and based on our foundation allowance for this year, that's about $4.4 million in general fund revenue. So you can see on the chart there the enrollment for each of our buildings, the number of school of choice students, and then the percentage of enrollment in that school. So at our elementary level, we're as low as 3% of student enrollment or school of choice. At Washington, a little bit more than that at Hampar, and then at Hevel, that's our highest volume of school of choice students. That's about 15%. And that essentially really has allowed us over time to ensure that Hevel stays efficiently staffed and can remain a building with 3 sections at each grade level. And we don't get into a situation of blended classrooms or things like that. One of the things that's creating what appears to be like this growing number of, or growing enrollment at Hevel, you have to remember our growth in the IRR program, because our resident students from all schools that are in that program go there. And as we keep adding sections to IRR, we're now at, I think it's 60 students, just under 60 students in the IRR program. So although those students are included in specials and in some classroom instructions, that they have their own teacher of record and spend the bulk of their day in their own classroom in that specialized programming. Middle school, 7%, high school, 8%. That's just kind of the trend in the larger enrollment in those buildings. Pretty much mimics our overall district. A little higher in school of choice participation in the RVA program. We opened that up for second semester, and I believe we had 2 students. 2 or 3 students that took advantage of that from neighboring districts. When we look a little bit more at the impact on elementary, we start looking at that, once again, the same information, total enrollment, the number, the percentage, and then when we put that up against the actual sections or classes, grade level classes in the building, we'll begin to see the average of school of choice students in each class. So Amanda Moore, an average of just under 2 school of choice students per classroom. Hamilton Parsons closer to 1, and Hevel were closer to 4. We do have some students who are special ed students at Hevel, a couple that are in the IRR program, but most of them are all resident students. Indian Hills is about 2 school choice students per grade level classroom, and Washington's averaging just under a student. So overall, 1.9 is the average of the number of kids in a grade level classroom through school of choice at the elementary level. We have 3 classes or sections, as we call it, for staffing purposes at each grade level. And all of our schools, with the exception of 4th grade at Hamilton Parsons, that's that grade level that we had to do 4 kindergarten years back. We think some parents kept their kids home in that COVID year and started kindergarten the next year. And that's maintained 4 sections all the way through to 4th grade, and they'll move to 5th grade next year. And then 5th grade at Amanda Moore was a lower enrollment, so we actually consolidated, and there's 2 sections of 5th grade at Amanda Moore. We talked about Hevel having the highest number, Washington having the lowest. School of choice students at the elementary level are able to fit into our resident student staffing allocations. If there is not room in the grade level cohort because we're trending above that target per teacher contract and closer to the maximum, then we would close that grade level for enrollment. And we always ask our parents requesting school of choice to give us their top 2 school choices. Sometimes some parents don't make a second choice, and if there wasn't availability, they just wouldn't enroll. But most families will give us a couple choices. When we look at the revenue stream just specifically for elementary, it's about $1.8 million of general fund revenue. And if we put this just on an average metric, that's really enough revenue to employ about 18 teachers. However, when we look at this volume of students according to target or lower class size, it really would only take about 7 teachers. So this is how school of choice enrollment, supports better staffing levels and better average class sizes. That doesn't necessarily fix everything because we have those anomaly grade levels at certain buildings that are just higher enrollment and closer to the maximum numbers as they matriculate through the system. Did an analysis of class size. I think just in general, when we look at the volume of classes, we have 70% of our classrooms at the elementary that are currently below the target number of students for that grade level per the teacher contract, and in some cases, pretty significantly below the target. Only 5 of our 95 grade level classrooms have class sizes at the maximum number of students, and that is 5%. In 2 of those cases, we actually had some higher than normal resident enrollment late in the summer and into the beginning of the school year that has pushed those class sizes up towards the maximum. I think we have 1 classroom that is paying 1 overage currently. And once again, when we don't have room, we won't accept students through the application process. That's all for me. Questions that the board might have? Mrs. McFarland, Mrs. Pereira might ask for you to help.
Can you go back 2
Yep.
slides? Go back. Class selections, what is that? Classes, sections, what do you mean by that one?
So there's 18 grade level classrooms at Amanda Moore Elementary.
Oh, okay. So that's the actual grade?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah. So it's typically 3 per grade level. There's 1 young 5s and then 3 per grade level. In the case of Amanda Moore, because they only have 2 5th grade, they're 1 lower at 18.
I just have a comment that I appreciate the metric, the ratio of how much school of choice brings in and the rules that we have according to class sizes, and then how you organized everything so that we can visually see that school of choice actually supports better staffing and hiring more teachers. So I really appreciate this.
My comment, and this can also be saved for resolution time, I have a few things, but last year we voted there's, all of this focuses on inter-district, which, just to clarify for everyone, inter-district is, just as Dr. Robinson explained, it's children outside our residency. But last year we also voted to maintain inter-district. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Inter-district is where students who are already in our resident attendance area can opt or apply to go to a different school. And that data is not presented here because we did vote to indefinitely keep that. I did talk to Dr. Robinson about, if the board is interested. This same board voted, agreed with that last year at this time. That is something I personally would like to look at again because that does affect class size numbers and that's not reflected in this data here. So, that's just a thought I have.
So I gave you the information in the memo, and that isn't as time sensitive as the inter-district windows are. So if the board wants to look further at that, we've got the numbers there, we've got where the kids, what their home schools are, and you could take up a resolution in February. That has stood in place, and when that was suspended, it was actually a couple of years before I came, when they did a significant redistricting of Indian Hills students to both Hevel and Hampar. And so the board at that time put a stay on intra-district choice to keep everybody at their home school. And I think it was 3 years ago, we were at the point where the board voted to reinstate it. And so we addressed it a couple of years in a row each year, and it's one of those things that it's like we in the resolution we'll present the data every year. Quite honestly, the best time to probably give you that data would be in the spring. But the timing with everything else to make the decision if we were going to suspend it really should be now.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I would appreciate that. And the other part of a couple of things that I highlighted, taking notes, I know that third grade cohort, third grade is such, all of these grades are important, but third grade is such a critical year, that transition from lower to upper elementary. So I did notice that on the data that shows that those are typically in our district, the most of where the classrooms are over their targeted number. And then this is where, the board is not, just for the public's knowledge, when the teachers negotiate their contract, the board is not really, we're not in the room and we're not part of that. We rely on information that we get from administrators. But when we were getting that previously in last year, I had specifically asked administration, are teachers is there a fight at the negotiation table for smaller class sizes? Because as an educator myself, I know how critical that is. I know how the difference of 2 kids can make or break a classroom. And that is something definitely, that is I'm passionate about. And I was told at that time, administration said, no, they really didn't ask for it. But then I've heard, from not, I haven't sat down with the teacher union, but I've heard from some teachers that actually we did ask for that. So I think there's that disconnect too. The board here is asked to vote and make this decision that affects so many people. It affects us financially, it affects teachers, but yet we really don't have all the clarification, at least for myself, to really know. Are we, I don't want to say no to the funding that we need. I don't want to say no to families that currently have kids from out of district, but their younger ones are not in yet, and I don't want to close it for them. But I also feel very passionate that we have teachers that are suffering with high class numbers, and some of that has nothing to do with school of choice. I know that sometimes just building and where subdivisions are going up, all of that affects that, but something's got to give at some point. So, I still have a lot of questions about this for myself.
I'll make a comment in terms, every negotiation's different, and of course, we know when we're in that process, we don't compromise, but we're not, so we don't negotiate again until next year. One of the conversations that I've had, just at this point with Mr. Murray, but we pondered whether maybe, because we're not negotiating this year, we could get, Mrs. Butler and some of the union leadership to sit down and have a conversation about this outside of the vacuum of negotiating.
Pressure of that.
And get some input across the spectrum, because it wouldn't surprise me that, when we look at, some classrooms that are up at the max, that those teachers wouldn't really want to address class size. You know what I'm saying? But then I also know if we looked at a grid and we looked at all the classrooms in our district that are 24 students or less, kindergarten classrooms that have less than 20, I just don't know that school of choice is the top of their, any teacher's gonna tell you that class size is important. Any administrator would tell you that. So it's one of those things that maybe we need to have a little conversation to get on the same page. And certainly prior to any negotiation, because if you're gonna lower class size, then you're gonna put yourself in a position to open more sections, which is what's gonna happen because school of choice does not impact us enough for it to just be, because all the kids that are here on school of choice stay unless they break enrollment. We would only be stopping any new from coming. So over time, it's really gonna be the resident student load in that building and grade levels that we could end up having to open additional sections. And now you have facility implications at times, in some buildings more than others. So I understand, I'm very respectful, it's a sensitive issue for the board. But I would tell you that in my 11th year of being a superintendent, I've never seen better class size numbers across the district. And that doesn't mean that we don't have these 5 cohorts at buildings that are up there. And we gotta keep an eye on them and not let any school of choice students into those cohorts as we look to future years. But I feel very comfortable about our class size. And I am hopeful that we can continue to see enrollment growth and increases in the state foundation each year, because when those two things don't happen, then we'll think very differently about class size. And we'd be back to those conversations about where do we have to contract sections? Where do we have to blend classrooms? That's my story.
Okay. I know one of the other things, not to belabor the point, but this is, last year when we had this discussion, I know we've had, thoughts on this as we knew that this was coming up on the agenda, some questions from the board, but we were talking about specific buildings and would we shut off certain buildings, that maybe had high residency and already were filling up, would we shut those off to school of choice? And last year, it wasn't put in writing, but I was told by administration, absolutely, if that school is high numbers, we are not gonna touch them for school of choice. And yet I see the data and school of choice kids were put at that school, not a ton, but that also, I'll be honest, creates a little bit of distrust because I voted yes on it last year, assuming that would be followed through. And unless I'm misunderstanding data here, it seems like some of that was not. And I know it's not always a black and white issue either.
Yeah. Well, the most conversation last year was around Hamilton Parsons, and their enrollment is 17 kids smaller this year than it was last year. And we would never close an elementary building. We would look at it as grade levels
Right.
within
And
each school.
I think that's more the issue at that
Right.
building, it's specific grade levels
Yeah.
at any of the schools, some.
Some are
the
even
problem.
at the secondary level, we have to look at the grade level and the available seats, and that's the limited. And we've had some conversation about, maybe we need to investigate limited in the future down into the middle school. What we really want is families that want to be here, both resident families that were not their choice right now and potential school of choice. We want to get the students in as early as possible because it allows us to staff for them, especially at the secondary level. And it also allows them to have maximum time in our curriculum, so that we have a lot of control. In a perfect world, we'd get them at 4 years old at Croswell, and they'd be with us all the way until we hand them a diploma. But we do get some ebb and flow. Some of our buildings see more turnover than others. But three of our 5 elementary schools are pretty consistent enrollment in terms of resident students are here and they're here for their whole elementary career.
So are you saying that we can close certain grades in certain schools?
Yeah, I think, I know we traded a little bit of email about this. This really isn't the time to do that. I think the first look we should be looking at is our February count, and then realistic in April. Because one of the things that will happen every year is we'll get students who will drop, and so where we're looking at a number right now from fall, and unfortunately, we might have some kids move away, and that actually could reduce the strain on that. I would say definitely we could get into a rhythm of April to August, like if not monthly, maybe even twice a month, updating of where those ones are at. If the numbers are there right now, then we would put a freeze on that grade level and be communicating that. We collect these applications for a period of time. We don't start talking to people about their acceptance until April.
Because my worry is that we leave all of this open come September, one of these being Indian Hills, having quite a few, and nobody leaving that grade. And then, we have school choice kids too, even though 2 doesn't seem like a lot, it is, because at that point, if you have 30 kids in a classroom, that's crowd control, and that's not education in my eyes. And I love that people want to come to this district, but I feel like I have an obligation for the kids in this district already, and the teachers and the staff, that I don't want to, we have this maximum number, that's all great, but we're over by 7 classrooms in this target. And I don't like, we're at the maximum, we can pay these teachers more. I'm sorry, but some of these teachers that I've talked to don't care about this
Yeah,
money.
most teachers, when given the option, they would rather have the extra help than the
So
extra
I don't
money.
want to wait till February to say, let's look back, because again, what if nobody leaves these classes? And then here we are stuck with all these kids in this classroom.
Well, we're 2 weeks away from February count day, so that will be the most current information. I think one of the things that, we have to understand is the contract class size at the elementary level has this established target and max. And there's a variance in between there. And that variance, when we have 3 classrooms in a grade level at a building, is really 9 students. You really have 9, you have the capacity to take 9 additional students in between target and max if there's 3 sections in that grade level. So I'm convinced there could be an equation that would allow for both younger siblings, you know what I'm saying, at the entry point of families that are already choicing here. In most cases, we know those parents, and we know there's a younger one coming. They might even be at Croswell. But I think there's the ability for us to set that number and then track it. And in those cases where we're over that number right now, it's closed. But I will tell you, it changes over time. And it changes over time primarily because of resident student in and out. But that doesn't mean that we wouldn't take those applications from people. We would just tell them, do you want to go to your second choice? We don't have a spot for you. It isn't as restricted as limited. When you do limited, you can only take kids in a certain window of time. When we're unlimited, if people are willing to stay on a wait list to see if something were to change, we have the ability to do that. So it wouldn't take long for us to tell you the 5 or 6 grade level cohorts in the district right now that we need to be very mindful of. We could also tell you the 15 that we have all the space, and more to take kids there. So that's something we could work on and just make it a part of communicating it to the board, in my weekly updates. Once we get the spreadsheet set up and you understand how to read it, then we're just gonna update the numbers as we move through, the enrollment season.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Okay. Thank you. All right, I do not have a public comment pertaining to tonight's agenda, so I will save this one that I do have for our last public comment. We're gonna go ahead and move on to our regular action items that are all in your packet that you received. So I'm gonna begin with Employee Services Resolution number 8. This is our personnel update, which if you noticed had a teacher and 2 paras that we are hiring, along with resignation and a couple retirees. It was a fairly light personnel update compared to some that we've had. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Okay, motion by Bowman. I'll second it. Oh. Okay, all right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, moving on, Employee Services Resolution number 9. This is the Board of Education Policy Update 2006, our second reading, and Mrs. Rice, do you mind just reading the language of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Draft Board Policy 2006 pertaining to personal electronic devices reads as follows. The school district reserves the right to prohibit the possession or use of personal electronic devices on school district property or at school district-related functions. For purposes of this policy, personal electronic device means a privately owned device that is used for audio, video, or text communications, including, but not limited to, cell phones, personal laptops, smartwatches, and other wireless device connections. Students are not prohibited to use personal electronic devices during the school day unless required by law or as set forth in the corresponding RCS administrative regulations. The superintendent shall develop administrative regulations consistent with this policy.
Just want to clarify it was students are not permitted to use personal electronic device. Thank you for reading that. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Boyer, support by Rice. Any questions, concerns? I know we met with administration and had a very extensive conversation over the course of 2 meetings on this, so we appreciate their time in helping develop this policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving on to Facilities Resolution number 10, the 2021 bond playground equipment purchases at Hevel and Indian Hills, which we were presented tonight. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Bowman, second by Chahaki. Any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, Business Services, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one quick question, Todd. On in your report earlier, it talked about the high school supplemental gym or extension gym. That's gonna come up in February? Because that wasn't, it
Yeah.
was listed under the playground stuff in your thing, but,
Right, it's out for bid right now.
It's out for bid,
It'll
okay.
come in February.
all right. Yeah, I didn't see it on here and I didn't see it in this, I was just confirming, okay.
All right, we are gonna move on to Business Services Resolution number 11, School of Choice for the 26-27 upcoming school year, and that is 105 and 105C inter-district.
I'd actually like to make a motion to table this for the next meeting.
Okay, motion to table this resolution. I would support that, especially given that we have 2 members missing tonight, and this is a very important decision for the district. So the motion on the table is to table this resolution until our regular scheduled meeting in February. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so that motion was made by Chahaki, supported by Bowman. Any questions? All right, so our resolution is to move this to February. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we have voted to move that resolution into next month. And Dr. Robinson, that will still be within the time frame of getting everything in for the application window? Not,
Yeah, I mean, if we
Not
have to
ideal.
move dates, we have to move dates.
okay,
You know, I don't know all the individual, I would have to go back through it with Mrs. Pereira and our enrollment coordinator,
okay.
pupil account to make sure.
I know that's
Yeah.
early spring that those all begin to open up. Okay. All right, moving on to Business Services Resolution number 12, CTE equipment purchase. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Bowman, second by Chahaki. Any comments, questions?
So what exactly is this for? This is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to it, the lighting?
So, scroll
Yeah.
down, way down in your packet. Page 28.
Yep. So $67,000, and it's coming out of what budget? Vocational Education Fund?
So there's a CTE equipment
Mm-hmm.
budget, so that's what it's coming out of. I think it's called a screencaster. It's for our video production. The current one they have, I think they've probably put enough Band-Aids on it that it's gonna go to sleep pretty soon. So this is covered through our CTE funding that we get from the state. So it's a state grant.
I think you also see in the supporting documentation, the notes from the advisory board meeting back in the fall that supported, our business partners supported updating this equipment for our students in the pathway.
Okay, and these are for the classrooms.
Correct, it's for the media production, Mrs. Harbison and Mr. D'Angelo's classroom.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, this again is resolution number 12, CTE equipment purchased, as laid out in your packet. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Abstain, for the record.
So that's abstain by Boyer, and then yes by the remaining 4. Okay. All right, I am going to apologize to interrupt our agenda, the closed session that we have, which is our next item. I'm going to propose that we move that to after our last public comment and board discussion for the good of the district. Any questions on that? Okay, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, so moving on now for the good of the district, any board discussion? Thank you for we've had quite a kicking off the new year with a lot of subcommittee meetings. Thank you all for, committing to that and being in attendance. Lots of good things going on in our district and working with administration. Any others, thoughts? Okay. All right, then I am going to move on to our last public comment time. I do have 2 here. I will begin with Danielle Barrett. And then Corinne, did I say that correctly? Corinne, okay, you will follow her. And you will have 3 minutes.
Oh,
Okay.
I didn't time it. I'm Danielle Barrett, and I'm here to comment about the potential rezoning for the data center, everybody's favorite topic. But first, I just want to comment on respond to a comment that Dr. Robinson made about we'd like to start them at 4 and have them here until they get their diploma. I have a 2nd grader and a 4th grader at Hevel, and my 2nd grader did start at 4 at Croswell, and we hope to be here until he gets his diploma at least and beyond. So, firstly, on the data center and rezoning, I know we've all heard a lot of different things about it. One thing I want to touch on is that the proximity of our schools to the site really does matter. We know that data centers run 24/7. They're loud, there's fans, there's cooling equipment. Those low-frequency sounds and vibrations have been reported to travel 2 to 4 miles, and they do penetrate buildings. So that is a concern because it makes it harder for students to concentrate, hear their teachers clearly, and stay focused, especially younger students, and as we talked about tonight, our IRR students. Second, the scale of these facilities bring cumulative impacts. When it comes to the major electrical equipment, cooling systems, emergency power infrastructure, when all of that's placed near a school, the area starts to feel more industrial. That can affect our indoor and outdoor learning spaces, recess areas, athletic fields, and any program that depends on a calm, predictable environment. These are everyday spaces that our students rely on. Third, the impacts are not shared equally. Our district, as we talked about tonight, only has 2 secondary schools, and both are located in the most affected areas from this project. That means that every middle school and high school student will feel the effects of the decisions made today. This is an equity issue. Students shouldn't have to face greater environmental and operational impacts simply because of where the school happens to be located. Schools can't mitigate these impacts on their own. Unlike private property, you guys can't just pick up and move. You can't redesign your buildings. You can't install large-scale noise and vibration controls. Once these occur, the impacts fall directly on the students and the staff, and the district has limited options to fix them. That's why it's important to talk about it now before this happens. For the long-term planning, we should put educational environments first. We talked about the inter and intra school of choice, and we know that people move to our community for this district. My family loves this district. We have several friends that are school of choice into this district. So we should absolutely be concerned about any large infrastructure project that comes near them. It should not compromise the conditions the students need to learn, focus, and thrive. I want to make a quick comment too on the potential impact of millages. Using conservative estimates, this property would have an SEV of about $9.3 million. And at that value, our schools would miss out on roughly $216,000 per year in new revenue, or about $2.6 million over the standard 12-year tax abatement period. Last, I want to acknowledge that we understand administrators can be hesitant to get involved in land use decisions. It's not typical. These decisions are complicated. They're outside of your day-to-day activities to run a full school system, but the impacts to the students are real, and you all deserve the clear, accurate information to understand what this project could mean for our learning environments, equity, and long-term planning. Having the facts will allow you to advocate effectively for the conditions our children need to succeed, which we sincerely urge you to do. I brought some flyers for you. There's a general one and one related to schools. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Corinne Graper. I have 3 kids, 1 kid in Hamilton Parsons, 1 kid in Romeo Middle School, and 1 kid in the 9th grade academy right here who had to tell me what the media center was. She's like, it's a library. I'm like, okay, I got that. So also here to talk about the data center. Right now that area is zoned ag, residential, and a little bit industrial. The future master plan has it zoned commercial on the 32-mile area, a swatch that is IRT, industrial research and technology, and then an area that's residential, right, which is a mixed, balanced way to move the township forward. The rezoning request is to rezone the whole thing to industrial research and technology, which would kind of be the gateway to a data center, into allowing a data center on 312 acres, which is a massive data center, and they would be allowed. Looking at other estimates, is probably between a 1 to 2 million square foot facility. These are industrial facilities. These aren't data centers of the old, which are quiet. These are industrial buildings. So my ask for you all is to do your research. There are not a lot of case studies out there yet because hyperscaled data centers are fairly new because of AI, the growth of AI. So there's not a lot of case studies and published research out there, but what you can find are a lot of documentaries of townspeople who live next to data centers, who live within 1 to 3 miles of data centers. And those are valuable in the meantime until the long-term studies can come out to tell you the impacts that people have. If you would write down a few things, a few towns that would be good for you to look into. Google Memphis, Tennessee, and data centers. There you will see a massive data center that was put in with a large amount of backup diesel generators, and the town was told these are just backups in case the power goes out. But these things consume enormous amounts of natural resources, electricity and water, resources you need to run your facilities as well, right? And those tend to impact surrounding homes and businesses and schools and their ability to get those as well. The Memphis, Tennessee facility can't get enough electricity from the grid to run itself. So they have fired up those diesel generators, and they run 24/7, and has contributed to air pollution in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, when all this was approved and the paperwork went in, it sounded nice. Oh, all this tax revenue is going to come in. They won't have air pollution. But the reality of it is they couldn't get enough electricity from the grid, and those generators are running constantly. You can read and listen to the documentaries of people who now have bronchitis and asthma who live within miles of those facilities. So that's when I would suggest you look at Mason, Georgia, and look at the water impacts down to that area. Also in Virginia, you can just Google Data Center Alley. It shows you what happens. Once one data center comes in, the surrounding areas get deluged with data centers. Is that the timer?
That's my timer.
Oh, all right. That's a whole lot better than some of the other timers at the Washington Township meetings. So just my request is to please do your research. Danielle and I are not crazy people. We're very normal people, right? And when I say to you, there are impacts here. We're not making stuff up. Some of these sites are starting to look at modular nuclear reactors to bring in. It's a slippery slope, right? And we don't know what's exactly going to happen or what's going to be proposed here. So just please do your research and think about showing up to the trustee meetings, forming an opinion, and sharing your opinion, whether it's as a board or individually. We would love to have you guys be part of the conversation for our students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, and just for the record, the school board does not have a vote on this. This is definitely a Washington Township issue, but it is something that affects our community. So if you're listening, please take that data and take that information and look into it. Thank you for coming. Can I have a motion now to go into closed session? And just a reminder, we cannot vote in closed session, and we are not coming out to vote on anything, but this closed session is to further discuss our superintendent's evaluation. May I have a motion for that?
Motion.
Motion by Boyer, second by Chahaki, and I think we need roll call for that.
Mrs. Bowman? Here. Mr. Boyer?
Here.
Mr. Hockey?
Here.
Mrs. Lightfoot?
Yes. Okay. All right, thank you all for coming.